Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Tia Matsumoto, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Let's go ahead and jump in. If you're watching this webinar today, you know that now is the time for preparing the best marketing campaigns to support your holiday promotions for 2016. So over the next hour or so, we're going to focus on 4 things. Key data points to drive highly impactful strategies and tactics for this year's peak. Then we'll also look at the need for what I call above and beyond creative execution, using richer email experiences and that sort of get noticed and inspire purchases. Then we're going to identify top data analyses that you should conduct right now to enhance message strategies throughout the upcoming holiday season. We'll end by wrapping it all up with some to-dos that you need to start today through the beginning of peak. I want to spend just a few moments setting the stage with some important data points from 2015. I think most notably here, we saw that consumers were progressively more online, and not surprisingly, they were using mobile devices throughout their shopping experiences. I'm going to show you here 3 industry powerhouses, and what they're saying about 2015 really confirm this with information about a record-breaking Thanksgiving weekend where more shoppers were online than in stores for the first time ever. Also, shoppers started almost half of their shopping on a mobile device, according to Nielsen. And then all signs point to mobile's continued role in the future of digital commerce revenue, as we see here from Gartner. I think this increased consumption of mobile requires more compelling and definitely more time-sensitive information. According to the 2015 lessons that our partners were able to pull, retailers specifically need to make the email channel work harder. So I'm going to go through here left to right. First up, our counterparts at eDataSource did a deep dive on what worked in 2015 to drive opens via that all-important subject line. Here they found that highly promotional discounting language like sale, save, % off, free shipping, like you see there, dominated subject lines. And actually they ended up finding out that the language most used by e-retailers was % off. Then in Gartner's 2015 Digital Commerce Holiday Recap, written by Jennifer Polk, she highlights that digital is often an assist channel where people browse and they compare products, prices. They plan both their online and offline shopping purchases. The ultimate call to action there was to connect digital marketing to both on and offline sales via customer identifiers, targeted advertising, and then mobile devices. Next up, the quote from the Relevancy Group, State of the Email Marketing Industry 2016 Tips to Optimize. Here is email marketing is the workhorse of the industry, but this dominance also underscores marketers' need to use relevant targeting to cut through the competitive clutter. I think this really resonates here at Zeta too, and we are absolutely aligned with their 5 tips as demonstrated here as well. And last on this slide, we take a peek at our 2015 holiday retail client baseline. And this is a study that's many years in the production now. In 2015, we found that mobile and tablet dominated opens and clicks on all key dates for the holiday season. And this really enforces or reinforces the need to ensure mobile friendliness across messages. Coupled with the research from 2015, there's another piece for consideration here, and it's the holiday rush. In Dan Ariely's recent Think with Google article, he rates about time pressure. And he says, where our need for time exceeds the amount of time currently available to us, I think a feeling most of us can relate to, especially during the holidays, this can be seen as a type of stress. So he says, to help us manage stress, we often experience a narrowing effect. And that's where we channel our focus toward a main task and ignore our filter out certain cues. This is critical from a marketing perspective because the narrowing effect leaves us with a very brief moment to grab attention and influence action. We need to be able to think about the context of our customers at each moment in their purchase path. So where are they and what device are they on? And what's their likely mindset in that given moment? And this is a huge challenge, to be sure, but we've identified several ways to help you do just that for 2016 peak. Okay, to better examine our opportunities for grabbing the most attention and influencing the most actions, we'll take a two-pronged approach. First, we're going to explore device-responsive email creative elements. These are designed to really entice clicks. And then we'll identify data analyses to conduct right now to enhance message strategies throughout the holiday season. First up is the creative elements. Instead of a typical batch and blast equivalent to the brown paper bag, use elements that will set your creative apart and help to attract and intrigue specific recipients. I don't think it's all about the bells and whistles, but rather it's more about the appeal that makes your emails more functional for recipients. So how do we go about addressing our needs to draw attention to our peak promotions and campaigns? I have my colleague, Jennifer Healy, and she's here with our VP of Creative at Zeta, Tim Ryan, to discuss. Jen and Tim?
Thanks, Tia. Tim, in looking back at holiday 2015, one thing that stands out in my mind is that animation was ubiquitous. We really saw it everywhere in the inbox. Retailers used this surprise and delight tactic in a very light-hearted manner, and we saw repeated use amongst the same retailers using one element of the email to catch the user's eye. What do you think is going to be the standout feature for peak 2016?
Well, Jen, I don't think there's going to be just one creative feature this year. It's likely going to be more about packaging emails that push both creative and technical executions for overall improved user engagement. The key to getting this right is about advanced planning and preparation on pieces that are both simple and smart. In smart, what do I mean by that, right? It is a synergy of art and science with email, right? Know your audience, of course, but know the program as well. Know your internal production processes. Identify a few key opportunities and pre-plan with those internal teams to make it a reality for the coming season.
Absolutely. Thanks, team. That's exactly right. So let's start by looking at expectations and predictions for the impending season. This year, we're seeing click-through rates on the decline. Mobile open shares are up, and time spent in the inbox is down, and there's increased clutter, of course. To minimize these general trends during peak, we need to increase our interactive features, ensure fluid hybrid design, contextual relevance, and personalization. So two specific categories to focus our attention are both richer email experiences with next generation animation and interactivity, and as it says here, device responsive email designed to inspire shopping behavior from mobile devices. We know competition is fierce and consumers are time crunched, but these statistics from our friends at Movable Ink are alarming even for the most seasoned of marketers. This season, our campaigns need to contend with the possibility of only getting 3 seconds of our recipients' time and competing with a substantial increase of messages in the inbox, 25% more here. And among those, our own planned increase of email. You can see here from our Zeta retail client baseline, 6+ in a week's time is a lot of messages. So this forces consideration of new creative tactics. As Tim mentioned, there are some fantastic progressive coding techniques pushing the envelope on kinetic email. One of our favorites here at Zeta is the carousel. It's great across devices, and it gives email recipients the opportunity to select product options within the email. Pretty neat. Here, we're highlighting color availability. So you can see it just changing on the desktop version and on the mobile version there. And this is also an example of Zeta's standard scope for this treatment. So 3 images allowing for a wide variety of applications there. This is an ideal treatment to include in your holiday campaigns as both an educational tool and a way to showcase the breadth of your inventory. It's also a prime opportunity for testing deep linking, I think, to product pages, and even cart placement links could be an interesting exercise. This is one of those examples where testing months in advance will help to determine how you can maximize the effectiveness for your brand. Equally important to this next generation animation and interactivity that we're talking about with the carousel is device responsive email design that helps to inspire that shopping behavior from a mobile device. We know that's the direction that purchasing online is going. So in case there was any doubt, mobile is here to stay. And as we look at the Zeta Holiday Retail baseline, as it's shown in this chart here, there's significant year-over-year growth for both open and click share across all key dates for 2015. Some of them are a little more impressive than others, but still positive in every single aspect. So the combination of better transaction channels, ubiquity, more phone models, and big bright screens and fast wireless broadband, those all give retailers better options for displaying their goods on mobile devices. And this will lead ultimately to more transactions. Let's discuss a little bit about how we can get a share of that pie, right? In this nice mobile specific element deemed the sticky banner here at Zeta, you're afforded the opportunity to keep a pronounced message front and center for your mobile recipients. So it persists while recipients swipe up and down, as you can see in this example. For this one in particular, it's important to know your audience. So you need to be sure to look at your device shares, as there are some limitations in functionality across device types. I think most notably here, if you want the banner to link, like the second example here on the right, and it's prompting to download an app, that will actually only work on iPhones. The banner will still be present for other devices. It will just be static rather than clickable. An even better consideration is using coding that can be included during the setup to restrict floating banner or sticky banner to specific device models. The opportunity for including sticky banners in holiday campaigns is enormous. I'm sure your mind is running right now with opportunities for applications, but I especially like the idea of time-sensitive callouts to help reinforce the sense of urgency for purchasing gifts. Another mobile-specific technique is the expandable nav, also known as the hamburger. Can you see it? A top bun, a meat, and a bottom bun are represented with those 3 black lines in the bottom left there. This one is great for saving real estate. So more of your promotional message shows, but recipients still have access to that varied content. This is also a nice way to convert a nav-heavy template into something far more mobile, user-friendly. Alternatively, you can use it to show product detail like we've illustrated here on our detailed example. So initial setup for this is pretty labor intensive. Give yourself plenty of lead time for development and implementation. You want to do that well before you're in the heart of the holiday season. And then after it's created, you'll be able to leverage it for future implementations with a lot less effort overall. Okay, as we wrap up the creative elements, I'd like to check in with Jen once again, and this time she's with our resident user interface expert, Rachel Isola.
Thanks again, Tia. Rachel, we've partnered on several of these next-gen animations, and I'm finding that one of the biggest fears for brands as they begin to consider implementing an element like this is the experiences and results across different email clients and devices. How do you address this?
Well, I think we're all aware that each email client has its own unique quirks regarding rendering, and we apply coding techniques to work around them. The added challenge is that as each browser or email app releases a new update, those quirks and how we may need to work around them may change. So if you plan to include interactive elements in your holiday campaigns, I recommend that you conduct rendering tests periodically between now and your target deployment dates to make sure everything that is still working. And if it's not, to give you time to adjust your design or code as needed. I'd also recommend creating fallback options so your main message is received no matter what device or email client your customer uses. Not only will these fallbacks help you reach a wider audience, but they could save you a lot of anxiety if an email client decides to send out a new release just before you hit that send button.
Right. Thank you, Rachel. These cutting-edge creative techniques are a super exciting way to package holiday creative, but you're right, you bring up an excellent point. I think an ounce of prevention could go a long way to saving your holiday numbers. All right, moving on to our second approach for grabbing the most attention and influencing the most action. Here, let's look at some data analysis. If you happen to catch the Holiday Readiness blog series, then you know that the baked goodies left out and selected by Santa are often hotly debated at my house. There are different accounts of what was left on the plate last year and recollections, sometimes varying recollections, of the clear favorites. But with an extraordinary emphasis on holiday revenue for most retailers, we undoubtedly need a more scientific approach for determining the best way to communicate with customers during this super important time of year. Did you know there are expected to be 3 billion worldwide email users by 2020? And between now and then, email volume is expected to grow by almost 10 billion messages year over year. That's a staggering amount of emails. Plus, we know from earlier research presented that email volume increased 25% for the holiday season last year. All of this adds up to a very crowded inbox. And yet, despite that volume increase and anticipation of the continued growth, I think email is still a very effective channel. So much so that marketers are increasing their budget and prioritizing their email marketing program and investment this year. But simultaneously to that, they're also finding that data and segmentation are still top challenges for the email marketing programs. And so herein lays the opportunity to leap ahead of your competition, knowing that this is a struggle for most. Capitalizing on some of the research and analysis will surely help you. Okay, 2015 saw an emerging shift from promotional emails into what we deem content emails, with a focus on segmenting and exciting customers about products instead of, the traditional promotions. While it's unlikely for most of us to move away from a heavy promotional calendar during peak, I think keeping an eye toward the value of the customer's relationship with your brand is super important. If your customers aren't getting value, they aren't opening your emails. And if they aren't opening your emails, you're missing out on sales and an opportunity to continue relationships. eConsultancy is quoted here. They just released a very good report about the promise of first-party data. And in it, they say, the future of marketing is using technology to provide uniquely human experiences by identifying what brands can do to add value to customers' lives. The best way to do that, we think, is via data analysis. So an examination of your customer's experience from start to finish will help to identify opportunities for stronger holiday email strategies, resulting in year-over-year improvement, which, of course, we all want. Okay, so in an effort to further persuade you into jumping into your data to make sure it's informing this year's campaign content, I want to start by addressing why you should look at these specific analyses, and then I'll touch upon how to go about performing them. Okay, we're starting at the beginning of your customer's email experience by looking at subject lines, of course. Here you can see a sampling of keywords from my personal inbox during peak of 2015. Very scientific evaluation here. In the tree itself are the most heavily used keywords, and under the tree are the moderate to somewhat used words, And they're in descending order, so you can get a feel for really the picture of my inbox. And I think this simple exercise reveals quite a lot about what's happening in a typical inbox during the holidays. You can transfer this same exercise to the emails that you sent last year and get a good feel for what they look like. We know the subject line is critical for driving opens, clicks, and ultimately conversions, of course, but it's even more important when we consider that there's more than a 50% increase in promotional emails during peak. And 1/3 of email recipients base their decision to open an email solely on the subject line. And then finally, the average open rate during peak is lower than that of the rest of the year. Probably not a huge surprise, but still a weighing factor. To go about learning from last year, we have 3 simple steps for you. Start by pulling subject lines from your 2015 holiday send. And here you might want to consider grouping them according to segments or sub-brands or whatever is relevant for your brand or brands. And then evaluate the best and worst drivers for opens. In this table here, you can see further analysis and results from our counterparts at eDataSource. They capture a very similar metric to open rate, and I want to address real quickly, called the read rate, whereby they model a rate based on the number of their panelists who view a particular message. So it's not exactly an open rate, but it's very akin to an open rate. And in their evaluation, they looked at highly promotional discounting language that dominated subject line communications last year. I think this is an excellent first step, but you must go beyond evaluating solely on open rate. To make it a little bit more advanced, the next step is to look at click-through rate. It's a very important metric here too. It gives you direct insight into how many people on your list are engaging with your content and interested in learning more about your brand and the offers you have. And then for the trifecta of evaluating your subject lines, you must also look at your conversions, which are directly tied to your call to actions, and of course then that's overall email marketing goals. The secret sauce here is to take a holistic view. Identify what worked and didn't work well last year, and make note of it for this year's campaign. And then we would be remiss to not include step 3, right? Complete this analysis by testing anything you can now or leading up to peak, of course, and let that help guide your holiday messaging efforts. This next one is admittedly all about clicks. But think about it for a second. If you could maximize your click-through rate on holiday pieces, you'd be one step closer to increasing your conversions too. I think it's fascinating. Many studies indicate that North American English-speaking people most often read digital information in an F-shaped pattern, as you can kind of see here. So this is a dominant reading pattern for eye tracking. Users first read in a horizontal movement, usually across the upper part of the content area, as you can see here with the orange and on the left-hand side. And this initial element forms the F top bar, right? Next, users move down the page just a little bit and then read across in another horizontal movement that typically occurs a little bit shorter of an area than the previous movement. And so this additional element forms the F lower bar. From there, they scan the content's left side in a vertical movement. And sometimes this is a fairly slow and systematic scan. It appears as kind of a solid stripe down that left-hand side of the heat map. But other times it's a faster move. It's created with a more spottier heat map. And this ultimately creates that last element that forms the F stem. Once again here, it's not something that we're looking at in isolation, right? So eye movement over your campaign is only a piece of the whole click-driving puzzle, if you will. It's also necessary to consider the combination of elements. So link placement is critical, calls to action, of course, and then the number of competing call to actions, plus the timing of the send, and many, many other factors like copy and color, and all of that can affect the overall click. So by running a heat map analysis, you'll gain insight into where the hot spots are within your email and specifically in your template. And that'll allow you to strategically place important content to optimize clicks. Take a look at this top performer from 2015. I love it. I love the owl and his little animated eyes. It was an evening flash sale that leveraged a standard template with unique creative to promote the time-sensitive promotion. When I overlay this really general heat map on it, this creative falls into that classic S pattern. So it's interesting to see that it's true across all digital formats, including email. It's worth mentioning here, though, before I move on, that the S pattern is not really relevant in mobile because obviously you're looking at a smaller screen. But wider bleed on images and then content aligning center helps with that click optimization there. So there's kind of a different set of rules for varying devices. Okay, now let's talk about the how. To perform this analysis, you need to start by pulling heat maps for key 2015 holiday campaigns. Then assess traffic driven by both placement and then also the common content elements. Identify the elements of your email templates next, and then find what should, and maybe what just will, still be intact for 2016. There should be some that naturally arise as testing candidates. Make plans to perform those tests now so you're armed with the most recent analysis for peak. The most beautifully executed, flawless email will not result in revenue if your website experience is broken. Examining your email conversion funnel is an easy way to identify opportunities to improve your site's user-friendliness. There are so many elements to evaluate here. So this analysis is a good candidate for today's to-do list. Don't put it off until tomorrow. Consumers have very little patience for sites that have trouble accessing, especially mobilely. And curiously, we see a lift quarter over quarter from Q4 versus Q3 in click to convert. So this signifies to me that there is an opportunity to make the most of that increased interest level. And then finally, this last stat here for you is about increasing conversion rates. So staying well informed of best practices like customized landing pages here will definitely help to increase conversion. Your ultimate goal here is CRO, or conversion rate optimization. In this conversion funnel, email is merely the first click in the consumer's decision journey. As you delve into this analysis, please note that it's important to evaluate email traffic separately from other traffic-driving channels like paid search, display, affiliate, those kind of acquisition channels, because email really represents return visitors, right? So the behaviors and the needs are going to be different for folks who come to your website via email. All right, here's the how. Start by looking at the purchase path after the email click. Identify the specific email traffic gaps to address before peak, and devise a plan to repair the purchase path right now. Of course, use this lead time to test and optimize content and anticipate customer behavior as well. Sadly, as the Grinch indicates, customers acquired during the holidays are generally weaker, more costly, and require multi-touch communication during the holiday shopping season to build better rapport. You need kind of kid gloves. Acquisition of perhaps what are likely to be one-time shoppers is extremely costly, especially around the holiday season when we're slashing prices and major acquisition strategies to convert to the first-time holiday customer into a repeat customer is super difficult. Still, acquiring new customers during peak is one of those necessary evils. But I think not all hope is lost. as we see some redeeming qualities for these new customers. In fact, this is an area where we can capitalize on that narrowing effect that we talked about earlier. While newly acquired peak customers appear to be somewhat of duds, especially the extreme deal seekers that we often acquire during Black Friday or Cyber Monday, they also spend slightly more than other customers, and they convert more quickly. One study that I was looking at even said as quickly as 13 days. Maybe more significantly, the time to first purchase interval stays consistently low for at least 3 weeks after Thanksgiving weekend. This means there's a clear window of opportunity to re-engage those Black Friday and Cyber Monday shoppers, get them and keep them shopping. And if you can do that, chances are they'll turn out to be worth the investment. All right, you're probably starting to sense a pattern here, but there's more to this than just when new customers are acquired during peak. There's also a source for each of these acquisitions, and frankly, some sources are better than others. Since you'll likely increase acquisition spend during the holiday season, understanding the quality and the ROI of emails gained from various acquisition sources will help you make smarter decisions around this coming season's budget allocation. It goes to follow, right, that acquiring higher quality email addresses will translate into a healthier overall email database. I think a good first step is simply understanding the composition of your email acquisition. Many of us don't have a clear view of that yet, so getting that is critical. But beyond that, it's important to monitor the performance of email addresses by acquisition source. I'd like to check in with Jen one last time, and this time she's with our analytics guru, Anna Liu.
Great information, Tia. Anna, the chart in the bottom right shows an example of just one of our list health monitoring dashboards. Which elements do you think are most important to monitor when evaluating acquisition source, and how often do you recommend analyzing them?
Sure, Jen. For the purpose of better understanding acquisition source, we want to evaluate the quality of the email address. First and foremost, is it valid and deliverable? Then we will look at the engagement, which can be as simple as a few top-line metrics, number of true new to email file addresses, or as advanced as something that is longitudinal, person-based, called cohort panel analysis. It really depends on the complexity of your brand as well as the number of acquisition sources that you're trying to monitor. In terms of the frequency of analyzing these sources, I say that monthly is about right, based on our experience, because this gives the opportunity for corrective actions in the terms of targeted campaign or adjustment to acquisition strategies and tactics that we see in the change of a KPI or customer behavior.
Aha, that's a good lead into our next analysis. Thank you, Anna. So identifying strategic pre-holiday audiences is far and away the biggest topic of today's webinar. We can't possibly cover all aspects here, but I want to talk about it from a big picture because I think tapping into your existing customer base is surely where the largest potential will be found. Coming full circle, I want to circle back to Dan Ariely's quote, and he reminds us it's critical today that marketers think about the context of their customers on the path to purchase, where they are, what device they're on, what their likely mindset is in the given moment. So I think to do this, we need to use data to determine the best way to increase both the level of spend and the purchase frequency. Thankfully, we are in a business where email marketing isn't just a top performing digital marketing channel. It's also a top source for data for analytics. We have so many data types to assist us here. We have a few listed here on this slide. I think a healthy mix of what customers say and do and who they are will help us to drive enriched content and creative. Here you can see an example from Dix where they have a gender-based versioning, men on the left and women on the right, just one opportunity for changing it up and making it more relevant for the end recipient. Engaging content drives required key learnings. So these implicit interests are then used for more relevant campaigns in the future. As we look at this, repeat customers' transactions amounts came in about 30% higher than new customers, while the number of items purchased was about 40% higher. So a testament to getting our folks who are already customers to purchase again. And it's been proven time and time again, personalized content equals higher responses, undoubtedly. And finally here, the email subscribers are responsible for just under half of retailers' revenue. So we have a huge opportunity to speak to them and get them to convert even more. That's the why, and now the how. Again, this is a super broad topic, but I want to illustrate a few opportunities for pulling out strategic pre-holiday, we're calling them audiences, or holiday audiences might be another way to think about it. The first one is maybe the most obvious, but there are lots of applications here. It's profiling via your 2015 holiday behavior. And it can help to identify groups of people well suited for very specific targeted communications. You can see here my chart is listing some of them, but just to get you thinking about it, do you have a large population of early shoppers, perhaps some returning gift givers? Do you have a large number of mobile purchasers? And if so, how can all of these groups be treated differently to address their context and their purchase path? Next, I think it's critical to look at the opportunity to utilize message types that outperform peak business as usual messages. So I'm going to highlight some top candidates here for consideration. And maybe it's a completely new message for holiday, and maybe it's just a versioning or a touch within the existing. First up is welcome. So each brand has different results around their welcome. But in one case, we saw a significant increase in the performance of the welcome series during peak. This is also a good opportunity to customize that multi-touch series for those newly acquired holiday folks, especially those Black Friday and Cyber Monday folks we just talked about that need a bit more nurturing. Another really popular one to look at here, and certainly critical during this time of year, is abandon browse or abandon cart. I think recently I pulled a survey by BizRate Insights, and they found that 23% of potential online buyers purposely abandon their shopping carts because they just want to collect the coupons that the seller might be putting into their email to try to close the sale. What a crazy tactic, right? Shoppers are kind of sneaky. This should be good motivation for putting some extra effort into fine-tuning this type of trigger for peak. Another one that lends itself really nicely to the holiday season is the wish list. So this is a great opportunity for holiday-specific marketing content that's personalized and that drives your relationship, but can also incent based on that sense of urgency. If you have the ability to say, only 3 left, that's a great way to drive that sense of urgency. And then finally here, don't forget to look at your transactional messages for opportunities as well. Last section of useful analyses within this, and again, it's a broad scope, but we want to make sure to talk about ways for list and brand preservation as well. So I think one of the ways to do that is to profile your inactive and your lapsed recipient folks who reactivated during the holiday season last year, and identify their lookalikes for this coming season so you can kind of anticipate who might be able to have some life breathed back into them just in time for the holiday season. Once you identify that group, you can do a bit of a warming. You can start, maybe around October with this audience so that you can include more of your universe in your holiday promotional mailings instead of hitting them cold right out of the gate at Thanksgiving or Black Friday. You probably know this about us, but the Zeta team loves this stuff. So if you need some inspiration or direction on how to get to this or go about identifying your brand's best holiday audiences, please reach out so we can help. In fact, there are many ways we can help you prepare for your strongest, most strategic holiday season yet. We work very hard to ensure that partnering with us is easy and will get you results. We'll apply any number of what you see up on the screen here, these solutions, to derive the best recipe for your brand at the holiday season. Wow, we covered a lot of material today. So to wrap this up, here's your cheat sheet. It's a series of checklists, and it's for today through peak. So it's on a timeline for you to make it nice and convenient. Be sure to start here to incorporate our holiday recommendations. And again, contact us so we can help you. Thank you for your time today.